Okay, picture this. You've just wrapped up a grueling 40-page appellate brief. Your legal arguments? Sharp. The citations? Airtight. You are ready to go. But before you actually hit file, you're staring down one last, absolutely miserable hurdle: formatting the table of authorities. Ugh, it is tedious, it's a massive time sink, and honestly, it's the literal last thing anyone wants to do. Well, in today's explainer, we're diving into a tool that is trying to completely flip that script. So naturally, when you're faced with this mountain of formatting, you go looking for a free tool. You hop online, type "free table of authorities tool" into the search bar, crossing your fingers for some magic button that'll just save your afternoon. But the results you usually get back? Yeah, incredibly disappointing. The overwhelming consensus online basically just points you right back to where you started, telling you to, just use Microsoft Word's built-in feature. And if you've ever actually tried to use that feature, you know exactly why that's just not the answer you were looking for. It's less of a solution and honestly more of a manual marathon. The magic number you really got to keep in mind here is 200. Why? Because if you actually follow that advice and use Word's method, that's roughly how many keystrokes you are signing up for. Seriously. To use the built-in feature, you've got to read through your entire brief, find every single citation completely by hand, and press Alt+Shift+I to mark each one. And then, this little dialog box pops up and you have to manually pick a category for it. You just repeat this agonizing process a couple hundred times before you can finally insert the table. I mean, come on, that is not an automated tool. That's a chore with extra steps. It's essentially making you do all the heavy lifting, stroke by agonizing stroke. Now, what about the other free options out there? Well, they aren't much better, to be honest. You'll usually stumble onto trial versions of cloud-based services. But here's the massive catch. To use them, you have to upload your client's highly confidential, pre-filed brief to some random vendor's server. And for the vast majority of legal professionals out there, we're talking paralegals, legal aid attorneys, solo practitioners, that's just an absolute non-starter. So the real state-of-the-art for a free table of authorities basically traps you between a rock and a hard place. You either waste hours doing it by hand and risk human error, or you hand over your client's private documents to who knows where. Enter citetab. This is the much-needed third option that finally breaks that super frustrating compromise. So what is it? Citetab is a free, open-source tool designed specifically to build your table of authorities for you. But the absolute most crucial part of this whole thing is that last bit. It runs entirely on your own computer. It was built from the ground up to solve the exact problem of time-wasting manual labor without ever asking you to compromise your client's privacy or, bend your ethical obligations. Let's lift the hood and look at what this tool actually does. You literally just hand it your Word brief and it goes to work. It reads through the whole document and spots the citations all on its own. And we're not just talking about the easy ones. It sniffs out the tricky short forms, the id dots, the supras, and it intelligently figures out which authority each reference points back to. Then, it assembles the properly grouped, alphabetized, and court-formatted table. But here is the real game changer. The part Word just never quite managed to get right. It nails the exact page numbers. It does this dynamically by actually laying out your document in the background to find where each citation truly lands on the physical page. So, you know how it goes. You edit your brief later, the pages inevitably shift around, you just run it again, and the table regenerates perfectly. It's basically how Word's table of contents button works, but finally applied to your legal authorities. So, going back to numbers for a second, the crucial one to understand here is 0. 0. That is the number of cloud uploads required to use citetab. There are 0 accounts to create, there are 0 servers your document is being sent out to, and there are 0 people on the other end snooping on what you're working on. That 0 represents complete, total control over your highly sensitive documents. Because the whole thing runs locally, your brief literally never leaves your computer. Citetab does all of its heavy lifting right there on your own machine, and then it simply hands the files back to you. Now, for anyone who handles confidential client documents on a daily basis, this local-only approach, it isn't just a fun, nice-to-have feature. It's the whole point. It gives you the peace of mind knowing your ethical obligations for client confidentiality are locked down tight, while you still get to enjoy the perks of modern automation. Now you might be wondering, who was this actually built for? Well, the developers very specifically had a certain group in mind: solo practitioners, small firm paralegals, legal aid attorneys, public defenders, law school clinics, basically the everyday heroes of the legal system who are just consistently priced out by the big commercial tools. The ones that cost hundreds of dollars a year and still demand that you put your brief on their servers. If those expensive, cloud-based options just do not work for your budget or your privacy standards, citetab was built explicitly to be the alternative that actually does. Okay, so how do you actually use it in practice? It's wonderfully straightforward. It's a Windows app, and the workflow is dead simple. Step 1, you install one free program that citetab relies on behind the scenes. It's called LibreOffice, and then you install citetab itself. Step 2, you open citetab and just select your word brief. That's literally it. Step 3, a few seconds later, boom, 2 new files are sitting right next to your original document. You get your brief, now with the table of authorities seamlessly built right in. Plus, and this is super handy, you get a plain text review report. This acts like a totally transparent log, telling you exactly what citetab did, what it added, which page numbers it corrected, and crucially, anything you might need to just give a quick double check. Now, I want to transparently set some expectations about where the tool is at today. Right now, citetab natively formats tables for federal appellate courts, specifically following FRAP, the Federal Rules of Appellate Procedure. So if you're currently filing in a federal appellate court, this tool is fully ready to jump in and save you some serious time right now. But if you practice in a different jurisdiction, don't worry, the source notes that support for more court formats is currently on the way. And that actually brings us to a really vital point about using automation in law. We need to be clear about the distinct line between what the tool does and what you do. What citetab does is strictly the clerical work. It finds the citations, it formats the table, and it saves you those 200 agonizing keystrokes. But it does not practice law, and it makes absolutely zero legal judgments. What it hands you is a highly reliable draft. What you do, or what the filing attorney does, is the legal judgment and the final review. The filing attorney remains 100% responsible for what gets filed to the court. Think of it like this. citetab just sweeps all that tedious, repetitive formatting completely out of your way, so your valuable time can go toward the high-level analysis that actually requires a real human legal mind. Which leaves us with one final question for you. Are you ready to take those 200 keystrokes off your plate? If you are just totally fed up with the manual chore of it all, and you firmly refuse to compromise your client's privacy just to get a little bit of automation, well, this might just be the exact solution you've been looking for. Definitely check the description below for the free open-source download link and the setup instructions so you can get back to doing the actual human legal work that matters. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and here's hoping this helps you reclaim your time.